And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to Gallivanting Man reporting from the home studio in California for the first time in about 6 months. And I just want to thank everyone. Thanks for everyone's support, and thanks for tuning in to the year. This is something very new to me. For those who couldn't tell, I'm not a trained videographer or filmmaker. These travel videos that I've started producing are kind of something on a whim. A few friends have been very encouraging and supportive. And that kind of snowballed into a whole community being very supportive and encouraging. So thanks to everyone who has been watching the videos and commenting and on social media, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Just a brief recap. Gallivanting wife, my wife Amy. We were living in Mexico for about half of 2021. We went down there in late June. We stayed through right before Christmas. We flew back. COVID cases kind of fluctuated, much like they did in the U.S. down in Mexico. I will say props to the people of Mexico and the Mexican government. It was not a how can I say this? They were far more willing to. I don't know, man. They just complained less. I don't know how else to explain it. Seems like the COVID was bad down there too, but you know what? It's so much better. When you went to a supermarket, you had to wash your hands, you had to disinfect your hands, you had to disinfect your feet. They had a solution that someone was there to take your temperature before you walked in the supermarket or hardware store or restaurant, whatever the case may be. And I realize those thermometers aren't the most effective means of getting one's temperature or analyzing someone's health, but it's more than we did in the U.S. And you know what? Just by putting someone there at the entrance of the supermarket or giant business, whatever the case, whatever it might be, electronics store, whatever it was, there would be someone stationed there taking someone's temperature, monitoring their appearance. Someone sweating profusely and coughing up a storm and looking a bit unwell. There's someone there to say you can't come in. You're in denial. I don't. You might not have COVID, but you might have something else, and you can't come in here with that stuff. Not now. This is not the right time to be winging it. And I feel like just by putting someone in there, it's like having a police officer on the subway platform. He might not stop all the crime, but it's certainly a deterrent for some people to stop pickpocketing people if there's a cop standing on the subway platform. And I think the same thing it kind of exists if you have anyone, a store manager, a security person. Just keep an eye out on who's coming in and out of your business. And these are big businesses. There's a lot of traffic coming, foot traffic coming in and out of there. But every little hurdle or obstacle that people have to go through, because let's face it, there was plenty of people getting on airplanes and going about their day knowing that they were not well, knowing that they could have some illness that could be transmitted easily. And it's just not fair to others. It's just not fair to people who are being proactive and careful. And, it's just not good. And it took until January 26th of this year, without getting too political, I will simply say the person who's in charge of the country now, our current president, was the one who changed it so that if you are coming from a foreign country back into the United States, you have to prove that you have a negative COVID test to prove that you are well enough to travel, across the border. I do not know why that wasn't mandated back in April or March, but it wasn't. And I know people are apprehensive about getting on airplanes right now, but I will say the airlines throughout the world have done a really good job investing millions of dollars to outfit the aircraft with, state-of-the-art air filtration systems. And I don't know all the science behind it. I don't know all the details of its engineering and such, but I will say that it seems to be working. We felt very safe on airplanes. And I know that seems probably very strange or almost impossible to comprehend, but we really did. It helps that they weren't very crowded. People aren't traveling for one reason or another, and I don't want to come across as promoting independent travel right now. I'm not suggesting that everyone should be resuming their goals of going places that they want to go, and then they're um, and revisit their bucket lists and do stuff like that, because probably now is probably not the right time to do that. But I can only share you with the experiences that we've had, and we were on a lot of airplanes in the last year or even 6 months. Um, if things weren't looking good, we certainly would not have continued to travel. Most of the travel we were um, working on was all in Mexico. I should say all of it was in Mexico. We did want to go to Colombia. Um, there are countries that are letting people with U.S. passports in. I'm going to go through a list. I've gone through several different sources to call a list together of countries where American passport holders or those with a U.S. passport can travel to without without having to, jump through too many hurdles. I know you can go to Thailand, but you have to quarantine in a government hotel or a hotel that the government says you can go to for 14 days, and you can't leave your room, and that's not much of a vacation. So doesn't sound fun. Anyway, I'm going to run through the list real quick. We're probably not too quick because it's a long list. And if everyone wants to comment or has a question, hit me up. This is a live broadcast, so only the second one I've ever done. Forgive me if I don't get it right. Hope it sounds all right. Albania. We'll start at the top. Letter A. Albania is a country in Europe which is often overlooked by independent travelers because people go to places like Italy and France, and I should just say France, right? Don't be so pretentious that I know how to speak French, because I really don't. It's France in this country. I often say France and Mexico and stuff like that, but it's France, it's Mexico. We live in the United States. Okay. Albania, you do not have to have any sort of documents proving you are negative to COVID or anything of that nature. You do not have to quarantine. You can expect some sort of health screening at the airport. And I will say Mexico is the same way. When you land in Mexico, we landed in several different Mexican airports, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico City, Cancun, Tuxtla Gutierrez. I know I mispronounced that, sorry. But what else? I forget. Might be another one in there. Oh, Cabo San Lucas, or San Jose del Cabo, Los Cabos. I think that might be it. But when you arrive in Mexico, again, there's a full screening. Have you been in contact with anyone who was sick? Have you had exposure to COVID? Blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera. When you land in the U.S., welcome home, buddy. That's about it. A little disheartening. It really was. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't get why people just don't care in this country. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, But be that as it may, let's continue through this list. If you want to go down to the Caribbean this winter, which sounds beautiful, you can go to Anguilla, the British territory in the Caribbean, accepting U.S. visitors. For the most part, I'm just going to predicate this by saying most of these countries that I'm going to mention require you to take a PCR test, which is, if you don't know, the most widely regarded as the most accurate and successful COVID test to prove you do or do not have COVID. So a lot of these places will require your results to be in hand no less than 72 hours before you're on the airplane. So you have to have a COVID test taken during the week and get the results back at least no more than 3 days before you get on the plane to travel abroad. All this talking makes me thirsty. Okay, you can go to Antigua and Barbuda, other Caribbean islands, and you do need to take a COVID-19 PCR test. And blah blah blah. They monitor your health for 14 days, and visitors are visitors are subject to monitoring by health officials for 14 days, and another COVID test may be required. That's all they say. And you should go if you're really considering going to these places. I would definitely recommend going to the U.S. Embassy's website or the national or state website of the islands themselves, Antigua and Barbuda. They both have government websites. Armenia. You can go to Armenia, which was having some political unrest, some conflicts, some fighting, but apparently it's at peace now and it's a safe place to go. So if you want to go to Armenia and have the ability to take a COVID test before you go, you can go to Armenia. Aruba, the Bahamas, Barbados, all places, a lot of places people like to go in the wintertime. And they are open to people with U.S. passports, but you do need to take a COVID test before going. And again, that was Aruba, the Bahamas, and Barbados. Bangladesh. Now, there are not many countries in Asia right now that are welcoming U.S. travelers, independent travelers. It's a bummer because we were trying to go to Vietnam this year. We had planned to visit Vietnam in the winter of 2021. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But we love going to Asia. We were in India in January of 2020, and boy, I am so glad we got that trip in before this whole mess started because it was just starting to kick off in Asia when we were there. No one had any idea it was going to be this bad, obviously, but Bangladesh. I'll read you the rules. U.S. citizens may travel to this culturally rich South Asian nation. To enter, you must have a medical certificate with English translation stating that you're negative for the COVID-19 with a PCR test taken within 72 hours of travel. You must also home quarantine for 14 days even with a negative PCR test. Now, from what I understand, home quarantines are generally far less strict than these official, government sanctioned quarantines. For instance, you can go to South Korea, another Asian country I'd like to visit, but they have mandatory, real quarantines. If you fly there, they escort you off the plane. They take you directly to a government-sanctioned quarantine hotel. You will spend 14 consecutive days in that hotel room. They will bring you your food. You cannot leave. If you're caught outside of your room, you face, immediate deportation and all that stuff. So that's a kind of a different set of circumstances. I've read stories and reports about people who have gone to South Korea and under those circumstances and played by those rules, and it does not sound like fun. It does not sound like something that is I would want to do. As much as I'd love to go to South Korea right now, 14 days is a long time to be stuck in a small hotel room without the ability to even wander anywhere. But Bangladesh, their home quarantine, again, I would really encourage people to go to the U.S. Embassy in Bangladesh's website and get further information if you're considering going there. But it's encouraging to know that these countries are letting people visit there if you're willing to take a real COVID test, a PCR test. And again, that test has to be taken 72 hours before you get on the airplane. And man, I don't know, something would just seem weird to me, flying all the way to Bangladesh. And I don't think you can fly directly to Bangladesh from the US as far as I know, but, and then winging it and hopefully that they'll let you in the country. I don't know. It just seems too much right now, but I applaud anyone that's willing to do it. Cause if you are able to go to these places right now, Hey, my buddy Gary's logged in. I do appreciate the support, man. I was just saying how much I appreciate the support of my friends because this started out this idea to get my face on camera. A couple of friends are very supportive. A few friends, more than a couple, but as a result of that, man, it's like people have been super supportive. I've got about 15,000 views on YouTube on several different um, videos that I made. And I'm not a trained filmmaker or videographer. This is all brand new to me. I'm a audio engineer by trade. The concert and live events industry is totally tanked right now. So this is all for sport. And, I like watching travel videos. So I'm going to try to make the ones that I like to watch. And hopefully people like those too. And so far, so good. If it takes off, and we'll see what happens. My expectations are pretty low, but maybe they'll get better with the next trip. We leave for Mexico in about 2 weeks. So we'll see what I can bust out. Where was I? In Barbados. You can go down to Barbados if you wish with a negative PCR test, taking 72 hours before you depart. So if you want to get down to the Caribbean, I know a lot of people live in the Northeast, love to get down to the Caribbean this time of year or Midwest or Canada. It's a long winter. Belize. I've been to Belize a bunch of times. It's a gorgeous country. And yeah, it's an interesting place to go. Most of Central America is actually open to U.S. citizens right now. So that's Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica. I think I got them all. Is that all of them? And again, you have to take a negative. You have to have negative test results before you get on an airplane. But I believe all those countries are open to visit. So my buddy Gary Moran, who lives in El Salvador, and I don't know if he's going to be listening to this, but hopefully he is. I'm coming to see you one day, man. I promise you, hopefully before this year's over, even because we're going to be right down in Mexico. I don't know if the land border is open or not, but man, I would love to go visit my buddy Gary in El Salvador. He's from, shoot, I wish I remember the name of the town off the top of my head right now, but I don't. Famous coffee growing region, and I don't remember the name. Shoot. Anyway, let's continue on this list. For those of you willing to be an independent traveler right now, there are a handful of, more than a handful, maybe about 50 countries that people who have U.S. passports, not including those who have dual citizenship or, residency in other countries, but people like myself, Americans who have those blue U.S. passports, they were once among the I don't know if powerful is the right word to use, but most valuable, definitely. The U.S. passports were once most valuable, among the most valuable in the world, because they got you into places. Almost every country in the world to welcome Americans for the most part. I think the only countries that made us buy visas were Cambodia and Vietnam. I know Russia makes you buy visas still, and China does too. But for the most part, you can travel with a U.S. passport without having to buy a travel visa, just about anywhere up until March of 2020. And man, how things changed quickly. Again, the fact that we were able to go to Asia last year and travel through India and Thailand and a little bit in Taipei, Taiwan was, man, we feel so fortunate for that, because who knows when those countries are going to be allowing America. Like Japan, where we took several trips to Japan in the last 5 or 10 years, and just so grateful for those experiences. I wish I'd made some videos. I wasn't making travel videos back then, and wish I had. Just continue on. If you're willing to go down to South America, you go down to Bolivia. You'd have to have a negative PCR test results taken 10 days before departure. Bosnia and Herzegovina. There are several countries in Europe you can go with a U.S. passport right now, and Bosnia Herzegovina is one of them, or two of them. You do need negative test results taken 48 hours. So that's not 72 hours before departure. But that's interesting to know, because that is a place I would love to go visit. I don't know you can fly directly to Bosnia or Herzegovina from the U.S., but you can definitely get there via London. If you've got places to go in Africa, if you want to go on a safari, Botswana, you can go to Botswana. with having taken a negative PCR test results taken. Brazil, again in South America, they had a pretty bad time with COVID because they've got terrible leadership, but you can go to Brazil if you do wish. British Virgin Islands are open. They have a $175 entry fee, which you can purchase on the BVI Gateway website. And you do need negative test results taken before you go to the British Virgin Islands as well. But that's encouraging, man. I know, again, people who are enduring long, cold winters, they fantasize about those tropical islands a lot. And not so much places. We've been to a couple of those. We were in St. Lucia and Martinique, and I always feel like they just have their hands in your pockets the entire time you're there. You're almost like held hostage on some of these places because they don't, the resorts are often pretty far away from where the locals live, and there's not a lot of mingling between the two areas. They're often very expensive, and not a big fan of some of those Caribbean island destinations. They're beautiful and all, but dollar for dollar, you just don't really get your bang for a buck. You better bring a lot of money if you're willing to, looking to have a good time down there. Cambodia never really closed. It was one of the countries that always kind of remained open, but there's stipulations. If you want to go to Cambodia, you have to leave I believe a $2,000 US deposit of some sort. Take a COVID test with negative results, but they also have a 13 or 14-day mandatory quarantine. So again, although the country's open and you can go, a 13 or 14-day quarantine in Cambodia does not sound like a whole lot of fun. I've been to Cambodia. There are beautiful places to go, but I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know. I don't think I would do it. I also don't think I'd fly all the way to Cambodia and risk it. It's like it's a far flight to go to Cambodia and have them tell you that you're not allowed in, or you're only allowed to go Angkor Wat, and then you have to fly home or something like that. The government of Cambodia is, a little dicey. The reputation's a little dicey at best. Chile, the lovely South American country of Chile, like Brazil and what did I say, Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, all letting U.S. travelers visit, provided you are willing to take a test and have no COVID results. Again, I mentioned Colombia. The Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, is welcoming people down there. If you want to go down to Africa again, with no tests needed, nothing. Oh, wait a minute. No, I stand corrected. U.S. citizens must have a negative COVID-19 PCR test result no more than 5 days old. So they do welcome PCR tests. Dominica, another Caribbean island, supposedly beautiful. Never been there, but you can go down there. The Dominican Republic, all these places used to get tons of cruise ships. All these islands that I'm talking about, they were all stops on the U.S. and European cruise ship routing. Go to Antigua, Barbuda, Barbados, Curacao, Aruba. All those places. Very, very popular for the cruise ships, and none of the cruise ships, as far as I know, are operating on those routes right now. So I read some story that they're going to have hopes to resume some cruises by May, and they'll have some sort of COVID passport you'll have to subscribe to. So proof that you've either had COVID and possess, the antibodies, or that you've had the vaccine given to you. Well, we'll see if that actually happens. I know the cruise ships are itching to get back into business. They've taken it right between the legs, but they had a good run. I'm not a big fan of cruises, so I can't say that I miss them at all. But I know people do, so we won't talk too badly about them. The Dutch Caribbean islands we talked about: Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Sabah, St. Martin, blah blah blah. All those places you can go to. Ecuador. Ecuador, And I'll read this to you because there's some stipulation about going to Galapagos. But Ecuador requires U.S. travelers to present proof of COVID-19 PCR test taken within 10 days of arrival to avoid quarantine. Testing is available for those who don't arrive with a negative test result. You must quarantine in an approved facility while waiting for the test results, which is most countries are doing just the same. The U.S. Embassy suggests you advise a lab that you need test results within 72 hours for your return flight to the U.S. So again, if you are returning to the U.S. from a foreign country, as of January 26th of 2021, you need to take a COVID test before you get on the plane. And again, I don't know why the United States was not doing that all the way back in April. It took this long for the federal government to realize that it was pretty essential that anyone coming back in the U.S. should not have COVID and have proof that they don't have COVID. So, but here we are. This is the situation we're in. Ecuador. So where was I about Ecuador? The U.S. Embassy suggests you take blah, blah, blah. The Galapagos Islands have additional entry requirements. So I know a lot of Ecuador's a small country. I've never been there. I've looked at going there. I'm a little familiar with the layout. It's not a big country. And a lot of people that visit the Galapagos, visit Ecuador, go there because they want to see the Galapagos Islands. And yeah, so check with the U.S. Embassy in Ecuador, see if you can make that happen. Egypt, definitely a country that I've wanted to visit my whole life, and one of the few on this list that I would actually consider going to. But again, it's like going all the way to Egypt and having them say like, no, 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 we changed our mind. We don't want you. We don't want Americans. We don't want foreigners, whatever the case may be. I just far way to go for things to potentially not go right. But if you want to go to Egypt and you do have the means to do so, U.S. travelers are permitted to go to Egypt with many of the same stipulations that I mentioned to other countries. Ethiopia, same way. They want a COVID test taken no more than 72 hours before you get on the plane. Ghana. If you want to go to the West African country of Ghana, you can do so with a COVID test. Grenada, another Caribbean island that gets a lot of cruise ships and such like that, is hurting for tourism, but you can go to Grenada. I mentioned Guatemala, Honduras, the Caribbean, Central American countries. Ireland and the UK both never stopped allowing U.S. travelers to visit. Shockingly enough, but they didn't. But you can go to Ireland and you can go to the United Kingdom. So England, Scotland, Wales, all those places. Jamaica, another popular island destination where the cruise industry is welcoming U.S. travelers via air. Kenya, so like Botswana, people I want to go to see some safaris in Africa. Kenya and Botswana both welcome U.S. visitors. The Maldives or Maldives, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Those beautiful little islands down there in the Indian Ocean, welcoming visitors with COVID test taken within 96 hours of arrival. No quarantine is mandatory. Malta, it's a place that we're actually looking at going this summer because Malta gets a ton of tourists every summer, and a lot of them come on cruise ships. And if you've ever been to places like Sicily or Sardinia, Corsica, those little islands, when the cruise ships pull in, it's a way different environment or kind of situation. It changes the whole dynamics of the island. And, some places are geared for cruise ships and some places just are not. When you go to Venice, for once, when you go to Venice, for instance, having a lovely day in Venice, which has tremendous crowds without cruise ships. And then 5 or 6 cruise ships pull in and bring in boat after boat after boat after. And these cruise ships have thousands of people on it. They're not small boats. They could have 2, 3, 4,000 people on each boat. So if you increase the population of Venice by 10, 20,000 people every day, it's a noticeable impact. And I know Venice is trying to deal with that and mitigate the damage that the cruise ships are doing, but it's a tough situation. They bring in a lot of money, they bring in a lot of tourists and stuff like that, money, but nothing's free. There's something to pay for that too. It's Anyway. I don't want to be too harsh on the cruise ship industry because I know plenty of people love taking cruises. I do not. It's not something that I ever foresee myself doing. But anyway, Malta, which is way down to the south of Sicily. If you're unsure where Malta is on a map, if you know where Italy is and you know where Sicily is, Malta's a little south of that. And beautiful Mediterranean island, tons and tons and tons of history, places we would love to go. And they are welcoming and have continued to welcome U.S. travelers. The deal is you have to quarantine yourself for 14 days before getting to Malta. So if you fly to the UK or Ireland or Turkey, for example, spend 2 weeks in any of those places and then continue on to Malta, they will allow you entry into Malta, which is huge. It's really, really huge. Something that we're actually considering doing this summer, or we were. Let's see what happens this summer. But we've always wanted to go to Malta, and now seems like the perfect opportunity to do so. So I'd love to see a place like that without the impact of cruise ships. Mexico, a place we spent most of, or about half of last year, not most of. We spent a half of last year in Mexico and had an unbelievable experience. It was something that we wanted to do for probably, I don't even know how long we wanted to do something like that, but never thought we'd actually have the opportunity to do so. At this stage of our lives, we never foresaw the opportunity that we could leave our jobs and our apartment for 5-6 months and relocate to Mexico. But because of this, we're both unemployed, and we're able to live in Mexico for about 5.5 months last year. And I gotta say, it was a life-changing experience in many ways. We visited cities like San Cristobal de las Casas and Puebla, and where else? Places that I'd always wanted to visit. Palenque. Uh, we've been wanting to visit these places for my whole life, really, my whole adult life at least. And they're not always that easy to get to. Every time you take a trip, your time is limited, your money's limited, so you can't do it all. But because of this, we're almost able to do it all. We're really almost able to do it all. And I think we're just trying to make the best of a bad situation. Really, we could live here in California and stay in our apartments and do very little and get through it that way, or we could do the same thing in Mexico, and it was better down there. So we're going back. Anyway, Mexico is allowing people to visit. You do not need to take a COVID test to get into Mexico. They screen you on arrival. They ask you if you've had any contact with COVID or people have had COVID and such like that. But for the most part, it's a pretty easy entry into Mexico. Not as easy in the U.S., but easy in the grand scheme of things. To get back into the U.S., you will need to take a COVID test, but that's not such a big deal to us. We will be doing that before we return. And the land borders crossing the U.S., I believe, are still closed. At least they're allegedly still closed until March 21st. But you definitely can fly from the U.S. to Mexico without any issue. Montenegro, which is a new country to open up its borders to U.S. travelers. It's a country in the Balkans. You need a negative PCR test or negative PCR test results. I keep saying you need a negative PCR test. You understand what I'm getting at, right? You need to take a test and have negative results before they allow you on the plane. And those results have to be gotten back no more than 72 hours before you get on the plane. Morocco, Northern African country. We have been to Morocco, a beautiful country. You can go there if you wish. You just need a COVID test taken. Namibia, another Southern African nation in the Negative PCR test. You'll be tested and placed in a quarantine at your own expense if you don't take one before you arrive in Namibia. Nepal is new to this list, and I'm just noticing this now. That is huge news. We were in, like I said, India a year ago, a little over a year ago, in January 2020. We were in northern India. We met a lot of Nepalese people in what is it, in the state of Bihar? But what's this? I can't remember the city now. It's a big Buddhist holy site, Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya. We were in Bodh Gaya in the state of Bihar, northern India. And there's a lot of Tibetan and Nepalese immigrants or refugees, or whichever you want to call it. I guess they're more immigrants. I don't think they're hiding from the Nepalese government, but or evading the Nepalese government. Nepal looks absolutely beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And I would love to go there. Again, it's like, do you risk it and fly all the way to Nepal and have them tell you, like, we've changed our mind. We don't want anyone coming from, where you are. It just seems like it's so far to get there. I mean, it's a almost 2 days of travel to get to Nepal. And as much as I'd love to go, I don't know that we will be doing that until things change. But I'll read you the rules. U.S. travelers can visit the landlocked Himalayan nation. Anyone 5 and older needs a negative result from a COVID PCR test taken no more than 72 hours before departure. You must also quarantine for 10 days or take another test on day 5 and end the quarantine on day 7. So that's something that I believe Ireland's doing as well. And that is you take your PCR test, you get on the airplane with, obviously you've had negative results before you get on the plane. You land in Nepal and you are then quarantined for 5 days. You can opt to do a full 10-day quarantine, and at the end of 10 days, you're free to go about your travels. Or after the 5th day of quarantine, they give you another test. And if that test comes back with negative results, you're then free to go after day 7. So you cut it, by a third. You get three less days of quarantining. But I gotta say, a 7-day quarantine in Nepal might actually be worth it. I think I could do 7 days in a Nepalese hotel. I think I could. That's different than doing 14 days in the South Korean hotel. Not that the accommodations or food would be any better or worse, but I don't know. Just seems it almost would be worth it to go to Nepal. Nicaragua, we talked about already. The country of Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Panama, all those Central American countries are open to U.S. travelers with a negative test result. North Macedonia, no tests, no quarantine, nothing. Wow, interesting. I did not know that. Macedonia is a country just north of Greece in Europe. And I did not know that it was welcoming travelers or tourists, and I did not know these requirements were so minimal either. Interesting. It says airports conduct thermal screenings for all passengers. Now, I don't know what their thermal screenings are. I've never been to North Macedonia, but my guess is those thermal screenings are going to be a thermometer, but I might be wrong about that. Panama, again, we've mentioned Panama is in Central America, and you can go there. Peru, I think I mentioned also. Countries of Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, all open to U.S. travelers. Chile, Brazil, I said already. I think the only one that's not in that area is Bolivia is as well. What am I thinking of? Argentina. Argentina is not on the list as far as I know. Rwanda, another African safari destination. These countries in Southern Africa or Central Africa make a lot of money on foreigners going on safaris. They're very, very expensive. The government takes in a ton of tax revenue from these safaris. So I imagine they want to resume that industry as quickly as possible because, yeah, they got to be hurting without that tourism. Senegal again, known for its beaches and music. It's allowing U.S. tourists to visit. I didn't know Senegal was known for its beaches. Certainly know the music. The Senegalese music is awesome, but I did not know about the beaches in Senegal. To enter, all people 2 and older must present an original COVID-19 PCR test certificate with a that was taken 5 days or less before arrival. There's no quarantine. So enjoy the beaches and music of Senegal. Again, flying to Africa, man. It's like and it sounds great, and I've never been to sub-Saharan Africa, but the right time to do that. But maybe it is. Serbia, what was once Yugoslavia, right? U.S. citizens need to provide a negative COVID-19 PCR test result, blah, 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 48 hours. So you can go to Serbia, which is an interesting place. I'd love to visit Sarajevo and Croatia, country, its neighboring country. So interesting. The Seychelles, I believe it's pronounced, another island destination in the Indian Ocean. Still aren't open. It says new. These Indian Ocean is still not open to the United States, but there's one notable exception. All travelers, including U.S. citizens who have gotten both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, are allowed to enter. So this is interesting because there's been a lot of discussion on a lot of different forums, and sources will be found out there if you want to search them out, that there perhaps might be, and the future of independent travel could ride on what they call vaccination passports or something to that, or COVID passports, whatever they want to. I don't know what the current vernacular really is, but basically, it will prove that you've got a you've been vaccinated against COVID, or perhaps that you've had COVID and show COVID antibodies. It does not exist yet, although I see this island in the Indian Ocean, the Seychelles, are going ahead with that. So if you have gotten both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, you will be the only exception. You will be the only Americans or residents of the United States to be allowed to enter those islands. Without the vaccination, you're out of luck. So if you got, and these are kind of like honeymoon destinations, as far as I can will say. Generally, people that go to these places are either on honeymoon or some sort of bucket list. Most independent travelers that I know do not go to places like the Seychelles. They're very expensive. It's difficult to get there. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the photos look stunning. They look absolutely, and so do the Maldives or Maldives. I'm not sure which one. Is it Maldives or Maldives? If anyone knows, please let me know. But it's not some place you just kind of hop along to if you're like on an independent travel circuit. I'm not sure these places are really on those on that map or on those maps. They're kind of exclusive, very high dollar, very glamorous honeymoon destinations, sort of. I don't know how else to describe it. My interpretation, at least, and I've never been there. I've read a little bit about them, but I don't doubt their beauty. I'm sure I would love being there. Sometimes you just have to weigh how much does it cost to get to this place, and is it worth it? And with unlimited resources, I'm sure it is worth it. But for those of us on a budget, the amount of money that I would put into the Seychelles or the Maldives would probably sustain me in Southeast Asia, like, traveling around Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia for a long, long, long time. And that's kind of my rationale, South Africa. Another place I'd love to go. Also very, very far to get there, though. One of the most popular destinations in Africa has reopened to U.S. citizens. South Africa requires a negative COVID-19 PCR test or serology test. I'm not sure what the serology test is. Result taken within 72 hours of departure. Keep in mind a COVID-19 variant has been discovered in South Africa. We all know about the variants. And, I was watching the Bill Maher show on HBO a few days ago, and he was talking about these variants and stuff like that. As far as I could tell, and I'm no disease expert or anything like that. Like, I spent just as much time on the internet as probably the next person, but I think we should be pretty in a celebratory kind of a cautiously optimistic, as a lot of politicians like to say, but at least celebrating the fact that we're on a downward trajectory. There's less There are less COVID deaths now than there were 2 months ago. Case loads are declining, steadily declining across the country and in Mexico. I don't know about Europe. I haven't checked recently, but these newspapers, these newspapers, and these headlines, since these sensational headlines that keep popping up, and they freak people out, and people focus on them so intently that this variant's coming from the UK, this variant's coming from South Africa, this variant's coming from California. And it's like we're never going to get caught up. We're never going to get ahead of this. But we are getting ahead of it. We are winning this race. People are getting vaccinated. It's getting better. It's better than it was 6 months ago. It will be better in 6 months than it was a year ago. And again, I'm no disease expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biologist, and I'm not pretending to be one like a lot of people do. But I don't like to fall victim of these headlines either. That we're as we're take 2 steps forward and we take 3 steps back because there's a new variant coming in that's more potent and more dangerous than the one we're getting vaccinated against. And the vaccines, are they going to work? Well, as far as I can, the information that I've come across and what I've seen thus far is the vaccines are working. We're getting people vaccinated, and the caseloads are going down. Hopefully, they will continue to go down. I know we've got Easter holiday. Some people are a little concerned about that because there are going to be large gatherings of people. But I think we should celebrate the fact that we've endured a very difficult year. The holiday season was extraordinarily tough because COVID cases went through the roof, and that's not the case right now. So, you still need to be vigilant and diligent about fighting the COVID cases away, fighting them off. But I also don't want to fall victim of these sensational headlines about these deadly variants that are gonna just prove any effort that we've given to just prove those efforts been to be null and void, because we're never going to get ahead of this. We are going to get ahead of it. It's never going to go away, but we are going to get ahead of it. And that's my prediction. Again, I'm not the Dr. Gallivanting Man. I'm an independent traveler pretending to know what I'm talking about. So these are all opinions. Take them for what it's worth. What's not an opinion is that South Korea will allow you to go visit South Korea. But again, I talked about that. You have to stay in a government sanctioned facility or hotel. It's not a facility, it's a hotel, but you're literally in your room for 2 weeks straight, 14 days. And they bring you food. You're not allowed out. You're locked in. It's taken very, very, very seriously. And, I don't know. If you really want to go to South Korea and you've got the willpower to stay in a hotel room for 14 days, and I don't know that I would do that, though. But it is an option, so I'm sharing it with the world. Sri Lanka, another place I would love to go, and this is pretty tempting as well. The tropical island off the India's southeastern coast has been opened back up to all nations. You must have a negative result from a COVID-19 test to enter and stay at least 14 days at an approved hotel or resort. So I guess that's a similar type of quarantine as the South Korea and not Bangladesh, but South Korea, and what was the other one? I'm not thinking of it right now. So that might not be so attractive after all. Oh, Nepal, they had the quarantine there as well. St. Kitts and Nevis, again, two upscale vacation destinations in the Caribbean that are very popular with the cruise ship industry. Probably very desperate for tourists right now. You know, if you want to go stay in some fancy beach resorts, that's where people often go. You need a negative PCR test taken, blah, 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 blah. You can look more into that if you want to go to those islands. St. Lucia, we've been to St. Lucia, went there for our honeymoon in 2010. Beautiful island. I'm not in any hurry to get back there. It was a fun place to visit. Beaches were okay, water was nice, and I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about these Caribbean islands. They're just not for me. They're not. I don't sit on the beach and cook in the sun all day. I don't know. The diving is nice if you're into scuba diving or snorkeling. It's fun. They're great places for that. But you know, there's so is Belize and those places too in the Western Caribbean, which I find more my speed, more to my liking. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, more islands in the Caribbean. Again, popular cruise ships are open if you want to go down there for some summer, winter holiday. Tanzania. Where the hell is Tanzania? I don't even know where that is. I guess it's in Africa because they're talking about safaris and beaches. Tanzania. I'll have to look that one up. Tanzania is open for tourists. Incoming passengers are required to fill out a health surveillance form and have health screening. You might also have to take a COVID-19 test if the airline you're flying with requires it. That's interesting. So the airline requires it, not the government. That's encouraging. For return trips to America, the U.S. Embassy says there are increasing reports of there's reports that it's difficult to find a place to get a PCR test taken in Tanzania. So again, you need to take a PCR test before you return to the U.S. So that would really suck. Imagine going all the way to Tanzania to somewhere in Africa, wherever Tanzania is, and you try to fly home and you do all the things you think are you're doing things in the correct order and following the correct protocol, and they tell you, "Oh, we can get you the test, but I can't guarantee the test results will be back in time." Like, oh man, and that's exactly what I fear. Like, something that the chances of something to going wrong are just too great to even though your time might be unlimited. It's like, do you really want to subject yourself to that type of bureaucracy and difficulty and be in a far away foreign country and have them tell you that they can't get you a lab result delivered back to you in a timely manner, so you can't get on the plane to go back to the US, or oof. Yikes, that would suck. Tunisia, the North African country of Tunisia, where I would actually consider going one day. Looks like a beautiful place, not too far from Morocco. Home to sunny Mediterranean beaches and ancient Roman ruins. Tunisia is open to U.S. passport holders, blah, blah, blah. So we all know the secret. You have to take a COVID test. Turkey. One of the few, I would call it a major European country. So we got United Kingdom, Ireland, Bosnia, Croatia's not on the list anymore. Serbia. There were a few. Albania. I'm trying to remember the European countries that allow visitors from the U.S., but Turkey is one of them. And Turkey is a place I would really love to go. So we shall see what happens about that. But Turkey has started requiring that the U.S. citizens and all visitors must have a negative COVID-19 test result taken 72 hours or less before their flight departs. Before that, so I think before December, before things really went, the second or third wave took off again, Turkey, I believe, was letting, Turkey was letting people enter the country without any tests taken, but I guess that changed in late 2020. So the good news is you can go to Turkey and you just need to take a COVID test and prove you don't have COVID. So that's really cool. I hope this is the future of independent travel. I realize it's still new to everyone, including the governments that are proposing these solutions. But they need to do something to keep people safe, but they also need to do something to allow people to travel. And I don't know any other way to do that than require some sort of documentation that you've had a vaccination to COVID. So I don't know if these COVID passports are going to take off, or they're going to be welcomed by the world universally, or how it's going to work. I really don't know. I don't know what to expect. I am only hoping that it is a glimmer of light at the end of a very dark tunnel, because hey, I'm a thrill seeker, if you want to call it that. I'm traveling because I like travel. I'm looking to go to these places because it's a fun thing to do. There are people out there, obviously, that are looking to resume their livelihoods. Um, and now that I think about it, my livelihood is definitely tapped into a lot of people's travel as well. I mean, I work big events that people travel from all over the world to attend, and I don't know any other way for them to, um, uh, successfully navigate the world without proving that you do not have this illness, this virus. So, if this is, like I said, a glimmer of light or a bit of hope, then I'll take it. I would certainly subscribe to anything that would be helpful in keeping people safe, and still allowing them to travel internationally. I can only dream of the day we were allowed to go back to Japan again, and places like that. And it just seems so far away. It seems so far off. I've never in my lifetime has someone, to think back in history when Japan closed its borders for like 300 years, and it's like we're almost in that same type of environment. While it's not, some nationalism that's driving that. It's an unfortunate virus that's wreaking havoc, but still we're living with the same kind of I don't know. It's a shit situation. I don't know how else to describe it. It's a tough one for so many people. Let's wrap this up though. We got the Turks and the Caicos, so more islands in the Caribbean. Again, they get a lot of cruise ships. Um, they've got a lot of fancy resorts and stuff like that. And Turks and the Caicos look like beautiful, beautiful islands. I've never been there, but maybe one day we'll go. Now's the time to visit. I imagine these resorts and hotels are are very offering some pretty good deals. I would like to think so, at least. Uganda. I don't know anyone that's been to Uganda. Anyone know it's anyone been in Uganda? Central African country of Uganda, described as a lush nation. Negative PCR test taken, you can go to Uganda. United Kingdom, we talked about, and Zambia. More African wildlife. And boy, yeah, I imagine these African safaris, these countries that again live on tax revenue from these African safaris, they must be really, really hurting. That's the list that I've got, the most current list, and I've been traveling. I've been looking at these lists for. I check back every few days to see when they get updated. I have a few different sources. If you go Google where can Americans travel right now, it's uh, there are a few reputable sources that report back as to where people with U.S. passports and not dual citizenship or residency uh, in other countries, but people who have the blue USA passports, where are they allowed to go and travel to as independent travelers? It's a pretty good. I mean, there's enough to choose from. I think it's not as great as probably people would want it to be, but it's a start. And I'd like to think it will continue to get bigger and not smaller. That's my hope, at least. Um, we shall see what happens. We'll see what the summer brings. I think my own prediction is things are going to look much, much different 60 days from now. Come beginning of May, I think things could look a lot different. At least I hope it will. And we'll try to update the world via Gallivanting Man's YouTube channel and on social media about what we're doing. Again, we're traveling back to Mexico in a couple weeks, so we'll be resuming some video production. We'll be living in the Yucatan for about a month. Merida, city we've been to before, and it's a beautiful little. Not so little. It's a beautiful city. For those of you who've never been on the Yucatan Peninsula, about 40 minutes from the coast. So it's not really the Caribbean coast anymore, more in the Gulf of Mexico. So the water's a little bit different, not quite as clear and crystal clear, the Caribbean green as you'd find, like in Cozumel or Tulum. But beautiful little place, great food. Some of the best food we had in Mexico is in that area. Really, it's so good. I think my favorite food areas in Mexico are in the Oaxaca areas, in the state of Oaxaca, and the state of Yucatan. It's vastly different in their culinary contributions to the world, but man, some of the best food outside of Mexico City, that is. Mexico City's got the best food in the country. It's just amazing. And it's so diverse with the population coming from all over Mexico. You've got representation from every state in the country, and they're going to bring their best chefs and such like that. So you can get amazing Oaxacan food in Mexico City. You can get great Yucatan food in Mexico City. And I don't know, maybe it's just like, maybe it's just where we go or what we're familiar with, but it just seemed like everywhere we went that was not Mexico City, the food was just not quite as good. Um, I know I'll probably get hell from that because one thing I noticed about making the travel videos is a lot of people who live in those towns that I've made the videos about would watch the videos. So, it became very apparent to me that I better be giving reputable and accurate information because people will hold you accountable. And thankfully, I've been pretty lucky so far. I haven't gotten too many finger waves in my, you done it all wrong. You went to the wrong places. You're talking shit. I know I did mention back one time that it was tough to find good Italian and French bread in Mexico City due to the high elevations, and people chimed in. I knew they would. I felt the onslaught coming. That of course you can get great bread in Mexico City. And blah, 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 blah. Like, well, show me where. I'm listening. Tell me where to go. I will go. I'll be back in Mexico City. If you know where to get great Italian and French bread in Mexico City, tell me where to go right now. I'm listening. I'm all ears. Send me a message. And I'm not really challenging anybody. I'd love to know. It's just, baking bread at high elevation is not easy. It's doesn't always come out that great. And I don't know, it's the bread in France tastes like good French bread. I don't know what to tell you. Bread in Italy tastes like good Italian bread. And sometimes it doesn't really translate across borders all that well. The bread products, I will say, that kind of gets frustrating. It's just different, and it's something that I do enjoy. They're very good. It's just different. It's just different. So we often stick with tortillas because those corn tortillas that the southern Mexico, where the corn is a real staple of the diet. Wow, unbelievably delicious. So good. We cannot wait to return. I love Mexico. I wanted to say thank you to the awesome people of Mexico. It was a tough time this winter. The businesses needed support. The places that we went to, it was fun to be able to help support some of these places that we went. They were very happy to see us and welcoming. we were happy to be part of that and be there for it. It was nice to be traveling without a lot of other people traveling, other foreign. It's always fun to be in places and feel like you're the only one, you're the only foreigner there. I don't, it's a fantasy, of course. Why would you're not the only one there, but it's just fun to think that you have it all to yourself for that little bit of time. I don't know why that is. You notice that when you go to places like in Japan, for instance, you'd be walking the streets and you see other foreigners, Europeans or Americans, and very rarely do they make eye contact. They always want to pretend that you know they're the only foreigners there for that moment in time. Very silly, very very silly. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up because I'm on here for about an hour and 5 minutes of talking, and that's a lot of talking. You ever tried to talk into the computer for an hour and 5 minutes? It's not easy. Not an easy thing to do. I'm not a born entertainer, but hopefully this was entertaining. And please keep in touch. Keep watching the YouTube channel, Gallivanting Man, and subscribe if you have not. If you have subscribed, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate everyone's support. It's been meant all the world. And all right, as I like to say, ciao for now.